He got him out of jail 3 times, and then turned to me like I owed him a favor. I can still hear the sound of my father's voice from that night, low, steady, and filled with something even heavier than anger, with certainty. He had just wired another $5,000 to the county jail. Tyler, my younger brother, had been arrested yet again. 3rd time in 2 years. This time, he decked a bouncer at a club in Ashton after trying to skip out on a tab and bragging about having connections. And once more, Dad didn't even hesitate. He paid his bail like it was nothing. "He's your brother," Dad said, setting his phone down hard on the kitchen counter. "You owe us this." I just stared at him. "Excuse me." He leaned back in his chair, casual as anything, like we were discussing grocery prices. "We've done our share. Now it's your turn." I couldn't make sense of it. I hadn't asked them to bail Tyler out once, let alone 2 times. And yet, here I was, somehow in debt over the 3rd. They never even asked me. But suddenly, it was my responsibility. I'm Harper. I'm 32, work as a financial advisor out of Chicago. I pay my bills early, contribute to my 401k, and my idea of a wild Friday night is finishing a bottle of Merlot while scrolling through investment trends. And just so it's clear, I've never spent a night behind bars. But in my family? Tyler, the golden child who once maxed out Mom's credit card to buy concert tickets, was just finding his path. Meanwhile, I was the uptight one. The cold daughter who didn't understand what real family loyalty looked like. The dependable one who never caused scenes. And apparently, that made me the automatic safety net for everyone else. It's not like I hadn't helped before. I chipped in on Mom's hospital bills last year when insurance left them hanging. I restructured Dad's retirement portfolio after the market nosedived. I even opened a joint investment account under Dad's name so he could shelter some real estate profits more efficiently. But none of that mattered now. Because I said no. Because this time, I drew a line. I told them, keeping my voice calm, I'm not bailing Tyler out. Not again. Not ever. Dad's face shifted, his calm cracked, and something colder took over. His jaw clenched, and that angry vein near his temple, the one that always flared up before he lost it with Tyler, popped out. "You selfish little brat," he spat. "After all we've done for you." I was stunned. "For me," I said. "I've been paying my own rent since I turned 18. I put myself through college. You took out a second mortgage for Tyler's tuition, and he couldn't even stick it out for a semester." He was struggling. Mom yelled from across the room, gripping a dish towel like it was the only thing holding her together. "You never gave him grace." That's when it hit me we weren't having a conversation. We were acting out a script I never auditioned for but was forced to play all my life. "You owe us this," Dad repeated. "He's your brother. Family means sacrifice." "No," I said, my voice low and sure. "This isn't sacrifice. This is enabling, and I'm done playing my part." I stood up, ready to leave. I didn't expect applause. I just needed space. And that's when it happened. Dad moved quicker than I thought a man in his 60s could. 1 second, I was heading for the door, and the next, he shoved me hard. I slammed into the hallway wall, the impact rattling through my whole body. "Don't you dare walk away from me," he roared, his face flushed, his hands trembling. "I put a roof over your head for 18 years. And after that," I shot back, "I paid for everything myself. You're just mad I won't pay for Tyler's screw-ups." Mom screamed. Tyler, fresh out of jail and still smelling like bleach and holding cells, stood at the top of the stairs and said absolutely nothing, like none of this had anything to do with him. I left that night. No big scene. No slamming doors. Just quiet footsteps and a heart that felt like it had split open. I used to believe loyalty was about how much you could endure, how much you could pay, how much you could suffer, because eventually it had to mean something. Right, that night, while I drove through the quiet, snowy streets of Chicago, something clicked in my mind. In my family, loyalty was never unconditional, it was transactional. And I had just declined the deal. That was the real beginning. Not of a fight, but of everything slowly falling apart. Because the next time they reached out, it wasn't just about money. It was about breaking me down. They had no clue I was already piecing together my own way out. It had been 3 weeks since I left their house, without looking back. No calls, no texts. I let myself hope, just a little, that maybe the silence meant something had changed. Maybe they were finally giving me the space they'd always refused me. But, of course, I was wrong. The email came on a Tuesday morning. Subject line: need to talk. It was from my mom. She never emailed. Normally, she texted like she was wearing boxing gloves, abbreviations everywhere, random capital letters, every sentence trailing off with a bunch of dots. But this was different. This was careful. Thought out. I didn't rush to open it. I finished up my client calls, went on my usual walk to the coffee shop around the corner, ordered a medium black coffee, and sat back at my desk. Only then did I open the email. It was short. Harper, we need your help. Tyler's in trouble again. Dad says we need you to come by tonight. Please. MOMD. Explanation. No apology. Just again. Against every bit of common sense left in me, I drove back to that house that night. Same tired suburban home with the cracked driveway no one ever bothered fixing and the bay windows with shutters that needed repainting 10 years ago. I even parked 2 houses down. Just like I used to back in high school when I didn't want anyone knowing where I lived. Inside, it was like nothing had changed. The living room still smelled faintly of lemon polish and quiet tension. Tyler was sprawled on the couch, red-eyed, scrolling through TikTok with the volume barely audible. Dad sat back in his old recliner, his posture screaming expectation. Mom twisted her hands in her lap, avoiding my eyes. I didn't sit. So, what's the disaster this time? I asked. Dad cleared his throat like he was getting ready to deliver an important speech. There's a situation, he said. Of course there was. This time it's serious, he continued, plowing through my sarcasm like it wasn't there. Tyler was out with some friends. Things got out of hand. Property damage. Resisting arrest. I glanced at Tyler, who still hadn't looked up once. He hit a cop, I said flatly. Mom flinched like I'd slapped her. Allegedly, she whispered. And the bail? I asked, not even pretending to be surprised. Dad handed me a folded piece of paper. It was a court notice. The bail this time? $20,000. Double the last. You've got the liquidity, Dad said, like he was talking about transferring funds between accounts. If you cosign, the money doesn't even leave your account, unless he bolts. You mean unless he gets arrested again? I corrected, staring him down. Dad's face tightened. This isn't about money, he snapped. It's about loyalty. There it was again, that word they loved throwing around. Loyalty. Their version meant bleeding yourself dry for someone who wouldn't even bother saying thank you. No, I said, my voice steady. Harper, Mom started, her voice quivering. No, I said again, sharper. I'm not putting my name on anything for him. Not anymore. This isn't helping. It's about keeping the peace, pretending everything's fine. You want me to stay quiet and keep cleaning up his mess so you don't have to face it yourselves. You think you're better than us? Dad barked, jumping up from his chair, his fists clenched. I think knowing what responsibility actually means makes me different, I said, holding my ground. And I'm tired of being punished for it. Dad's face flushed deep red, not the explosive rage like before, but a low, simmering anger that felt just as dangerous. You've always been cold, he muttered. Even as a little girl. Never cried. Never needed anything. Just sat there like some kind of machine. I almost laughed. What I wanted to say was that emotionless little girl he remembered. That was a survival tactic. Self-sufficiency wasn't a gift in that house, it was armor, but instead, all I said was, I learned it from you. The whole room froze. Tyler finally lifted his head, gave a quick glance, and then dropped his eyes like none of this involved him. Maybe it didn't. Maybe he knew no matter what happened, they'd find some other way to save him. They always did. Dad made one last, desperate play. Your mother's been sick, he said, voice dripping with guilt. You want her stressing herself into another episode? Is that what you want? Guilt, their favorite weapon. I turned to Mom. Are you seriously okay with this? I asked. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she said nothing. She looked at Tyler, then Dad, then dropped her eyes back to her lap. That was all the answer I needed. I turned around and walked out. But this time, it wasn't just leaving. It was closing a door for good. The next few days passed in a strange, heavy blur. At first, I didn't answer calls. Then I blocked their numbers altogether. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. I transferred all remaining funds from the joint account Dad and I shared. Legally, it was his, but I still had signing rights he gave me years ago. Back when I thought we were building a future, not just tying me down. Now I saw the truth. It was leverage they thought I'd die without. They expected me to break. They expected me to crawl back, desperate for approval. Instead, I called my lawyer. I gathered every document, every signed contract, every scrap of proof I had. Rob and I dug through the agreements and found loopholes they never noticed. We found back doors they had handed me without realizing it, and with them I started planning. But before I could strike, they did. A week later, I received a certified letter at my apartment. 3 pages. Neatly typed and signed by Dad himself. IT accused me of betrayal and abandoning my blood for the sake of money. IT warned if I didn't reconsider, they would dissolve the partnership and sue. I laughed. Not a bitter laugh. A free one. Because the account they threatened to freeze, I had already shut it down. The assets they wanted to weaponize? Already restructured under my name, legally and silently. They hadn't noticed yet, but they would, and when they did, it would be far too late, because Tyler, like Dad, never learned one important thing. You can't punch your way out of a contract. Dad had signed everything without reading the fine print. The thing about real revenge is simple. IT doesn't shout. IT doesn't slam doors. IT moves in silence. Signed, notarized, filed away. To be why the time it arrives, it's already over. When I finished reading Dad's letter, I didn't flinch. I didn't hesitate. I smiled. He still thought guilt could control me. He still thought I cared about preserving the fantasy of family. But while he played emotional games, I built my way out. Years ago, when things still seemed hopeful, I helped Dad build a portfolio. IT wasn't massive. A few duplexes, small offices, long-term rentals around Chicago. He had the money, but no idea how to manage it. I had the strategy. I set up LLCs, investment vehicles, a full management structure. I gave myself co-signing rights and 51% authority on key properties. I buried clauses deep in the paperwork to protect myself. At the time, I thought I was being responsible. Now, I realized I had been building my freedom all along. Dad used to say, "One day this will all be yours, Harper. You're the only one who can keep it alive." He was right, just not in the way he imagined. After getting his letter, I didn't argue, I didn't call, I didn't explain anything. Instead, I made one final call to Rob Whitman. He had survived his own family betrayals and didn't waste time. I sent him everything. 7 properties, 5 of them under the umbrella LLC Dad and I shared. I had 51% management authority on 3. I had equal rights on 2 more, but with a hidden clause, a liquidity clause, written by me, buried where no one ever bothered to look. If there was ongoing delinquency, reputational risk, or operational instability, I had full control. I could freeze funds, redirect assets, protect the investment, all without permission, and thanks to Dad and Tyler's latest disaster, that clause had already triggered. Blake's criminal record made renting 2 properties nearly impossible for months. Reputational risk? Easy. I had newspaper clippings, viral tweets, even mugshots from Blake's last arrest. Operational instability? Dad's temper alone had driven out 2 longtime tenants from our best lease. I documented everything. Rob filed the motions. We triggered the liquidity clause, quietly and legally without warning. The first change came fast. Notification. Ownership entity restructured and approved. 1 LLC converted into a wholly owned subsidiary under my personal holding company. Clean, legal, irreversible. The second change followed a week later. I sold 2 underperforming units, taking a slight loss for speed. I redirected the cash into a private trust under my name. When Dad noticed, he thought it was a system glitch. He left me voicemails, furious, confused, demanding answers. Ethan, what the hell is going on? I can't access the account. The property manager says you fired them. Call me back. I didn't. Days later, another email arrived, this one laced with panic. Ethan, the bank froze the investment account. I have a transfer scheduled. The HVAC guys are threatening to walk. What are you doing? Still, I said nothing, because the truth was simple. He signed everything away years ago. When I set up the LLCs, I made one request, my name on all paperwork. Dad agreed, assuming it was for convenience, bragging to everyone at the golf club. My boy's a whiz, he said. IRS can't touch us. He wasn't wrong, but now those signatures weren't protecting him, they were freeing me. There was only one property left, the crown jewel, a 3-story rental in Cambridge, an heirloom Dad thought untouchable. Technically, it was jointly owned. But 2 years ago, he needed cash after Blake wrecked a card. I wired the money without comment. In return, Dad signed a revised operating agreement, quietly handing me controlling interest. Now it was mine. I didn't sell it. I didn't need to. I refinanced it under my holding company, moved the debt, reset the lien. The final blow came without drama, just a notification email. All title transfers completed. Ethan Marsh Holdings now holds 100% interest. I printed the confirmation, slipped it into a plain enveloped NO return address, just a sticky note. Business is business. I dropped it in their mailbox one rainy Thursday afternoon. NO doorbelled. NO explanation. NO looking back. That night, my phone rang. Blocked number. I answered. Dad's voice cracked. What the hell did you do? I stayed calm. I protected myself. From you. From Blake. From this. You stole from your own family, he snapped. No, I said. You gave it away. You just didn't pay attention. Silence. Then, we trusted you. No, I corrected. You used me. Over and over. I just stopped letting you. Click. He hung up. The aftermath wasn't explosive. IT was slow, like a leaking boat they couldn't patch. They tried accessing old accounts. Denied. They tried contacting Rob. He sent a cease and desist letter within 24 hours. Blake texted once. Bro, WTF did you do? Dad's freaking. I didn't answer, not because I was cruel, but because I was done. I didn't evict them. I didn't humiliate them publicly. I didn't leak anything online. I simply cut them off, quietly, permanently. That winter, I sent one final legal notice. I offered a small payout, a courtesy severance. One last olive branch. They declined, and I didn't chase them. 2 months later, I sold the last property too. Every document was clean. Every move was legal. Every asset was accounted for. By spring, I was freed. I left Boston behind and found a quiet house near the Maine coast. I set up a home office overlooking the water. I bought a second-hand boat I barely knew how to use. I started sleeping through the night again. NO late-night calls. NO guilt trips. NO bail requests. They say silence means peace. Sometimes it's just the sound of bridges burning behind you. The hardest part wasn't walking away. IT was facing what came after the silence. Those quiet moments where you realize how much life you wasted on them. People who never really saw you, only what you could offer. After the last papers were signed, I expected euphoria or at least closure. But what I got was silenced. NO angry voicemails. No desperate texts, just nothing. IT was like they finally realized the old version of me was gone forever. Or maybe they just didn't know what to say when there was nothing left to take. I rented a moving truck, packed my things one box at a time. I sold most furniture, gave some away, left the rest behind. What mattered fit into half a truck and my backseat. Books, a few framed college photos, MY golf clubs, and Mom's old tea kettle. The new house was modest. A weathered 2-story near the rocky Maine coastline. The kind of town where people wave from their porches at strangers. The loudest sound at night was just wind through the pines. I didn't tell anyone where I went. No forwarding address. No social media update. Just gone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't bracing for the next crisis. No more 2 a.m. texts saying, Blake needs help. No more bank transfers marked as temporary. No more family dinners where silence was mistaken for hostility. No more performances. No more emotional debts. I wasn't the family accountant or the silent backbone anymore. I was just a man with a porch, an old kettle, and a view of the sea. I worked remotely, consulted for clients I actually liked. I started cooking again. I got a library card. I talked to neighbors, small things, tomatoes, weather, fishing spots. And I started sleeping, really sleeping. No dreams. No panic wake-ups at 3:00 a.m. But peace isn't always easy. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Some mornings, my hand would still reach for my phone out of habit. Other days, I'd check email, expecting a guilt-soaked letter from Dad, but it never came. Instead came the quiet realization they were gone. Or maybe I was 0.1 year past. The seasons changed. Snow fell, melted, and returned. I rebuilt a life without anyone noticing. No family holidays. No awkward birthdays. No reconciliation. Until Christmas. It was snowing heavily that morning, a heavy, quiet snow that muted the whole world. I sat by the fire, drinking coffee, when I heard it, tires crunching over fresh snow. A car. I stayed seated, watching through the window. It was my parents' car, the same beige sedan they'd had for years. It looked older now, like it didn't belong here in this quiet place, like it had driven through too many storms. They didn't get out immediately. They just sat there. I watched the wipers push away the snow. Then my father opened his door. He stood up, took a deep breath, and walked toward the house. He was holding something in his hand. A letter. Of course. My mother stayed in the car. He didn't knock. He didn't ring the bell. He slid the envelope through the mail slot. He stood there for almost a full minute. I didn't move. Eventually, he turned and walked back to the car. He didn't look back. They drove away. I didn't open the envelope that day. Not even the next. It sat on the counter for a week, unopened. I glanced at it, wondering what it said, but I knew it wouldn't be an apology. That wasn't in their nature. It would be vague. A justification wrapped in nostalgia, a plea for connection that ignored every boundary I'd set. I never opened it. A few days later, I went to the post office, bought a box of Christmas cards, sat at my desk and wrote exactly one. I used the only picture I had of this new life, a photo of my porch during the first snowfall. I printed it on the front. Inside, I wrote, "Hope you find peace." I already have. I signed it, sealed it, and mailed it. No return address. No second message. Just that. I didn't throw them out. I didn't yell. I didn't burn bridges with fire. I just stopped opening the door, and somehow that was louder than anything I'd ever said. Peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the absence of expectation. When I think about them now, I don't feel rage, not even sadness. Just distanced, me on this side of the water, them on the other. That space is enough. They can live their lives, keep spinning their narratives, keep looking for someone to carry Blake, someone to forgive without question, someone to pay the next bail. It won't be me. My job is done. Not because I gave up, but because I finally realized love without boundaries isn't loyalty, it's surrender. And I don't do that anymore. For the longest time, I believed family was an unbreakable contract. One not written on paper, but etched in obligation. No matter how deep the hurt, how often I was manipulated, how loudly my boundaries were dismissed, I had to stay, I had to forgive, I had to show up, because that's what family does, or so I was told. Growing up, I thought love meant sacrifice. To prove loyalty, you had to endure. I did. I covered for others. I paid what wasn't mine. I stayed silent to keep the peace. With each unspoken word, each check I wrote, a piece of me faded slowly, quietly, until I couldn't recognize the version of me who kept showing up to be used. This story isn't about anger. It's not about revenge. It's about clarity, the kind that comes when you step back far enough to see the full picture, not just the love you gave, but the one you never received, not just the sacrifices you made, but the ones you were never asked to make. The expectations placed on you were never shared with others, the double standards, the guilt, the silenced. I learned not all love is healthy, not all loyalty is noble. Some of it is learned survival, a script passed down through generations. It convinces you tolerating mistreatment is strength, that protecting others at your own expense is virtue, that endurance equals love. It doesn't. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is leave, not out of hatred, but self-respect, not to punish, but to preserve. I learned that boundaries aren't barriers. They are doors. They're not meant to keep people out, but to protect the parts of you that took effort to build. When people pound on those doors, demanding entry, the refusal to open them isn't cruel. It's necessary. I learned silence can be power. Not engaging in every argument doesn't make you weak. It makes you intentional. Avoiding conflict is different from choosing peace. One is fear, the other wisdom. Most of all, I learned walking away is not giving up. Giving up is when you stop caring. Walking away is caring too much to stay. The day I stopped opening the door wasn't heartlessness. It was the day I stopped bleeding in rooms of blame. It was the day I stopped explaining myself. The day I realized I could grieve and still be grateful. Without their betrayal, I might not have discovered my own strength. Without their silence, I wouldn't have heard my own voice. The voice saying, "You deserve better." And without being pushed to the edge, I might not have taken the leap. There's a misconception that walking away is weakness, that letting go means defeat. But the truth is, not everyone gets access to you forever. Especially when their access comes with conditions or harm. Sometimes closing a door is the kindest thing you can do. When you stop being the emotional safety net, people are forced to confront their own behavior. They may never apologize, but that's no longer your burden. Your only job is to protect your peace and live your truth. You're not responsible for the healing of those who keep hurting you. You are allowed to choose peace, even if it means distance. Love does not mean unconditional access. It means mutual respect. Your life, time, and energy are worth protecting. Now, in the quiet of a life I built on my own terms, I no longer seek validation from those who couldn't see me. I no longer chase the love I thought I had to earn. I no longer confuse obligation with affection. I am free, not because I burned bridges, but because some bridges were never meant to be crossed. If you're reading this, holding guilt for stepping away, wondering if you're heartless for choosing yourself, hear this. You are not wrong for leaving. You are not cold for protecting your peace. You are not selfish for choosing boundaries over chaos. You are wise. You are brave. You are free, and that's not abandonment. That's healing.